According to Gelato, sensation is primary cognitive experience. Woodworth says sensation is a first step of knowledge. James describes sensation are the first things in the way of consciousness. Sensation is the process that allows the brain to take in information via the five senses, which can be experienced and interpreted by the brain, detecting a physical energy from the environment and convert it into neural signals is termed as sensation. Each sensory system contains unique sensory receptors which will be designed in such a way to detect specific environmental stimuli. Once sensory receptors are detected, then it converts the environmental stimulus energy into electrochemical neural impulses. After that, the brain interprets those neural messages, which allows the brain to experience and make decisions about the environment. Sensation is relatively a passive mental process because the sense organ receives the sensation or stimulation passively. Sensations are from part of individuals' personal experiences or subjective to some extent. On the other hand, they are also objectives, they are answered by an external stimulus. Thus, sensations are partly objective and partly subjective. It differs in quality, for they have different sense organs and they produce different kinds of sensations from different stimuli. The sensation of color is different from the sensation of pain. These differ in kind and modality. It refers to the distinction in the intensity, duration and extensity. There shall be difference in sensation of hearing of loud sound as compared to hearing of low sound. For an example, the buzzing of mosquito at a distance 1 yard is not noticed and feels the difference between the flash of light and spark of a firefly. All sensation has relationship with other sensation and it is very much dependent upon the nature of other sensation. The sensation related to color have the different character than the sensation of voice. One can easily distinguish various sensations where it is situated in the external parts of the body. Each form of sensation an individual possesses is apparently connected with the activity of a specially constituted end organ. Thus, the sensation of touch or contact probably come from the stimulation of minute structures in the dermis and from nerves ending about the roots of the hair. Children have a more delicate and accurate sense of touch than the adults because of anatomical reason. The skin of the child contains practically the same nervous innervations as does that of adult, but the area thus innervated is much smaller. An individual is made to aware of the rotation of the joints when you move any part of the body is known as kinesthetic. The olfactory nerves terminate about the olfactory cells of the mucous membrane lining the upper portion of the nasal cavity. The most acute perception of smell are probably not obtained before 7 years of age because of mechanical difficulties in the form of the nostril. The abundance of mucus in infancy has a similar effect, producing obtuse smell sensitivities. The cells in the taste buds, found as a rule only on certain papilla of the tongue, furnish an individual with taste sensations. It is well developed at birth. For feeble-minded person, it will be defective. The base of the tongue is especially sensitive to bitter. The sides of the tongue are responsive to sour. The tip of the tongue is to sweet and salt. The center of the tongue is insensitive to taste. The plant Gymnema sylvestre leaves, when chewed by an individual, will paralyze the sensitivity for bitter and sweet without affecting the other taste. If cocaine is applied to the tongue, immediately it causes a loss of ability to distinguish bitter, then sweet, and finally salt and sour. If saccharine is applied to the mouth, it produces one taste in one part and another taste in another part. Saccharine is sweet to the tip and bitter to the base of the tongue. The auditory nerves terminate at the base of air cells in the internal ear. There are many thousands of cells, and the precise mode of their stimulation by vibrations of the air is extremely interesting, but too complex and too problematic. The air cells are immersed in the liquids contained by the sac-like membranes of the inner ear, and that external ear and the middle ear contain physical devices. The retina contains a most elaborate series of structures. The optic nerves enter from the back of each eyeball, and the nerve fibers are then distributed radially all over the spherical surfaces of the eyes as far forwarded as the lens. The fibers turn backward away from the center of the eye and lose themselves among the basal cells of the retinal structure. The light waves make their way in through the dioptric media of the eye, that is the cornea, the aqueous humor, the lens, and the vitreous humor, and finally, after passing through the transparent optic fibers, come to the retinal end organs, the rods and cones. At this point, the physical vibration in the nervous system send the signal to the brain. The rudimentary qualities of sensation are cold, warmth, pain and pressure. An individual may experience sensations such as hardness, softness, wetness, dryness, active and passive touch, sharpness, smoothness, roughness. These sensations are either compounds of pressure with some other sensation or else mere modifications of pressure itself. If an individual heats a drop of water to the exact temperature of skin and then place it on the hand, it will be very difficult to imagine any sensation caused by it other than pressure. Closely connected with the skin sensation are the kinesthetic or organic sensations. When an individual lifts a heavy weight, there is quickly noticeable over and above the pressure sensation in the hand, a feeling of strain in the arm. When the hand is firmly clasped, this strain also detectable. This sensation without doubt is largely referable to the sensory nerves about the tendons. Joints are probably indirect contributors to the group of sensations through their effect upon the tendons. The sensation of an individual experiences when he attempts to isolate the joint activity is strikingly like ordinary pressure. This isolation can be accomplished with sufficient accuracy by attaching a heavy weight to a cord and then, while holding the cord, allowing the weight to sink rapidly to the ground. At the moment when it strikes, one feels a sort of snapback sensation in the joints. The semicircular canals of the internal ear are supposed to produce the sensation of dizziness and the sensation of change of rate of movement when the whole body is being moved, as occurs when the one is on a railroad train. It should be said of these dizziness sensation that the eyes play a very large part in them, and also that various muscles may be engaged in the production. There is thus in no case any conscious reference by us of the sensations in the to the semicircular canal region. The respiratory and circulatory process produce certain sensory experiences closely akin to the cutaneous ones, that is, the sensation of closeness in the air comes from a genuine intrathoracic sensation. The sexual organs have a specific sensory quality, and the alimentary tract gives rise to the experience of nausea, thirst and hunger. It may be questioned whether these last experiences are not resolvable into the other simpler constituent sensation qualities in which pressure and pain, for an example, possibly play a part, and with which the affective factors of pleasantness and unpleasantness are markedly connected. The only common classification is based upon the affective consequences of the order stimuli, which is divided into two great classes, namely agreeable and disagreeable. Orders are designated by the objects from which they come, example leather, etc. For an example, a sour smell is often one which stirs up unpleasant gustatory sensation with choking contractions of the throat. The classification most used in a practical way at the present time is Schwademaker's modification of Linnaeus table. Ethereal smells including fruit odors, aromatic smells, example camphor and spice, fragrant smells, example many flowers, violets, sweet peas, ambrosic smells, example musk, alliaceous smells, example garlic, chlorine, emblematic smells, example burning tobacco, burnt toast, coffee, hircine smells, example cheese, for virulent smells, example opium, for nauseous smell, example decaying animal matter. There are only 4 elementary qualities of taste sensation, that is sour, salt, sweet and bitter. Taste are generally compounds or fusions of taste with temperature, pressure and smell. Thus, the characteristic taste of onions will be found astonishingly altered if one closed the nostrils firmly before taking the onion into the mouth. Two other elementary tastes to the list of gustatory qualities are alkaline and metallic, and they are compounds of the others. The temperature of the substances is that of the mouth itself, and one must be careful not to confuse the pricking, puckering effects of certain substances which are not taste sensation at all with the true taste quality. Auditory sensations fall naturally into two groups, noises and tones, but each of these can be subdivided again into a very large number of distinguishable qualities. The sensation qualities of noise when less than 2 complete vibrations of a sound wave are allowed to reach the ear, or what is perhaps owing to the reflection of the solent, the same thing when the tile waves which do reach the ear are irregular and non-periodic in their mode of vibration. These irregularities may evidently be indefinite in number, and so we get such differences in the sounds as distinguish, for example, the noise of a train from the noise of a drum. Visual sensation fall into two general classes, sensation of brightness and sensation of color. The brightness sensation are caused by the impingement upon the retina of mixed light waves of various lengths. White light is made up of light waves of all length. Pure color sensations are produced by homogeneous light waves or waves of practically equal length. If an individual apply the mode of analysis of vision to other sensations and attempt to reduce the visual spectral qualities apart from brightness to those which seem really elementary or 4 colors remaining, that is red, yellow, green and blue. All the others when closely inspected appear to him to be compounds. Orange appears both reddish and yellowish. Violet has traces both of blue and red, and so with all the transitional hues leading from one of these elementary colors to another. There are two principal forms of after images such as positive and negative. If one suddenly looks at a bright light and then closes the eyes, the light continues to be seen for some seconds in its proper intensity and hue. This phenomenon is a positive after image. If one looks for a very few seconds fixedly at a bit of blue paper and then closes the eyes or turns them upon some neutral grey background, one sees yellow patch corresponding in shape to the blue stimulus. This is a negative image. Negative images invert the relations of brightness in the stimulus so that what was white in the object appears black in the after image and vice versa. They also convert all spectral colors and their compounds into the several complementaries. The phenomena of contrast is especially striking in vision. Yellow and blue appear respectively yellower and bluer when seen side by side than when seen apart. This seems to be largely because of the fact that the eye moves slightly from one to the other, and the eye fatigued for blue already has a disposition to react with the yellow after image. If the part of the retina containing this yellow after image process is then exposed to the real objective yellow, the power of the stimulus is much enhanced and one can see a deeper, more intense yellow than the other should be known as successive contrast. Simultaneous contrast is an even more interesting phenomenon and may be illustrated by putting a small bit of grey pepper upon any colored field and then covering the whole with thin white tissue paper. The grey patch will under such conditions always appear of a color complementary to that of the field, that is, it will appear blue when the field is yellow, yellow when it is blue, reddish when it is green. Accurate color vision belongs to the central portion of the retina around the fovea. Red and green are only seen accurately for a short distance outside this region. Yellow and blue are lost next, and in the extreme periphery only white and grey can be sensed. This condition suggests pathological color blindness from which many persons suffer due to fovea. In addition to these color sensations, large number exist formed by combining the several spectral qualities with the brightness qualities. Some 30,000 distinguishable qualities can be produced in this way. For an example, red can be mixed with white to produce various tints such as pink, or with black to produce various shades such as brown. Sensation originates from the stimulation of a specific sense organ by some form of motion in the physical world surrounded by such as the air waves, the ether waves, the heat waves, but it is not only necessary that these various forms of stimuli should fall upon the sense organs. It is also necessary that they should possess sufficient intensity if we are to become conscious of them. A very faint light, sound and odor may fail to produce a sensation in an individual. The point at which such a stimulus becomes intense enough to produce sensation is called the limen or the threshold. Every stimulus must possess a definite intensity before it can give rise to a sensation, and it is even more obvious that every such stimulus must also possess certain duration if it is to be felt. Moreover, many sensations are very profoundly altered by prolonged duration. Thus, color sensations will be found to grow dim and to fade if it is continued for long. If there is an intense sound produced for a longer period, then an individual will experience pain. The sensory motor circuit makes it evident that the primary organic function of the sensory element in consciousness must be that instigating movements. Sensation processes operating to produce movements and then further operating to report the results of those movements, thus assisting in the establishment of useful coordination. Sensory stimulation ensnares movements. One must not make too sharp a distinction between the stimulation as sensed and the movement when a response is made without deliberation. The nervous process is practically a continuous forward movement of impulses from the sense organs clear around to the muscles. There is nowhere any essential break in this feature of the activity. The act is literally a unit. If the sense organs are stimulated, an individual makes conscious of objects rather than of mere qualities. If the eyes are exposed to stimulations of light, an individual ordinarily see such things as people or trees or houses, and he does not think of such objects as being merely so much color. One can note and recall the colors which belong to these objects, but the eyes test upon them certainly in adult life infrequently conscious of them as mere aggregates of color qualities. Similarly, when one can hear familiar words, it is very rare that the simple quality of the vocal sounds monopolizes the attention. On the other hand, a single musical tone, an unfamiliar fragrance, a feeling of warmth may enter the consciousness almost as pure qualities, to the objective character of which one can practically oblivious. In general, the function of sensation is to furnish with the elementary symbols of the various things in the world which stimulates the sensory motor activities, example, odors, colors, sounds. Moreover, it must not be for often that despite the elaboration which it undergoes, this sensuous raw material continues throughout the lives to furnish the body the content of all the sensory consciousness and minds pass from one sense element to another. Consciousness of odors occasionally approximates the condition of sensation by rendering an individual aware of specific qualities which relate him only in the vaguest way to past experience. Visual consciousness of the external world is always more or less complex. It always involves more or less of different colors, each of which has its own qualities, and one must consequently become aware of a group of these sensory qualities experienced simultaneously. Thank you.